hand, you have university and professor and especially urban economists who are, I think, have a very good understanding of the way cities work. But those people are not involved in the city management of cities. You very seldom see a professor or even an urban economist working for a mayor. They work for a university, they write papers for each other that they read, and some papers are very good, but it stays in the university or in the research. On the other hand, in cities, you have a department of urban planners who are mostly engineers or architects like myself, and they fly by the seat of their pants, if I may use this expression. They are confronted every day with the reality of the city, and they have to take decisions about, where to put a sewer line, where to put, a bus stop. They usually take a decision which is not based on very much analysis. And so you have those two worlds of people who understand city, but do not really interfere in cities, or act on the cities. And on the other hand, people who do the work, and they do it as best as they can, but without really any understanding of what a city is like. I found, for instance, one of the most incredible things I found in every city of the world, not only cities with medium income or something, but I found that in New York, I found that in Paris. You talk with an urban planner, and the urban planner will tell you, oh, I think that the city is not dense enough. At the same time, the same planners tell you, I think the price of land are too high. Now, any economist will understand that it's only very high price which creates high density. So if the planners say we want higher density, it means really we want higher prices. But he thinks it's so the opposite. So I sometimes I compare it to to medicine in the 17th century. So imagine that we have still doctors from the 17th century who have very, very little understanding how the body works. But they have patients and they tell them, well, you should abstain from drinking, or you should abstain from eating plantain or something, and they don't have a clue really. At the same time, you have a university who know exactly how the body works, but never communicated to the doctors. And I think that now in planning we are a bit at this stage. So it's not that the urban economists are the good guys and the planners are the bad guys. I think both of them have their shortage. The economists are not interested in action. They are academics. They like to write papers for each other and impress each other how clever they are. The urban people, they are confronted with everyday life. And if they tell the mayor tell them, do something about transport. If they tell the mayor, look, I need 6 months to collect data, I don't really understand what's happening. The mayor said, no. I have to announce tomorrow that we are going to have a new line of, buses or BRT or something. We have to do it. So the tendency is to do it immediately without really understanding what it will do. Another thing too is because people who are acting, acting in cities are mostly architects and engineers, like myself. I'm an architect, but because of their education, they do not understand markets. They have a complete, even I would say, rejection for market. They think market is speculation and things like that. So, but a city is made of market, really. The price of a house is set by the market. If the government sets the price of a house, that they give to poor people, they say, all right, this house, we will charge you only 1,000 pesos per month. There is a real market value of this house. And even if the government fixed the price, the real value will appear. It's still there. It's hidden. It's still there. That means that the person who received the house either will sub-rent it to somebody else because they prefer to have the money, Or maybe they will stay there all their life and never move, even where their income goes up. So you see, the market never disappears. And the problem is that many planners and architects do not understand the market very well, or even have a suspicion of it. Now, the economists understand it, but they don't act on cities. You know, they just comment and say, oh, you have done a bad job, but they just write in a specialized papers. I have not worked that much in Latin America. You know, I've worked mostly a little, I mean, in Mexico and in El Salvador. That's how the two countries. Now, I visited many other cities in Latin America, but I have not really worked there. My work has been mostly in Asia, you know, China, India, most countries of Asia, and Eastern Europe and Russia. So, going back to Latin America, my experience is limited. I think that one of the best progress in the last 20 years, and in a way it started with Curitiba, was to give more importance on transport, trying to get an efficient way of transport. Now, one of the problems with that is that, and especially because of the initial success of Curitiba, was a very innovative city. I think that now there is a bit of tendency to use formula, to stay on the same track of what was successful 20 years ago. Many of the cities of Latin America now are much larger than they were 20 years ago. And when a city grows, you cannot just replicate what was good at a certain scale and replicate it at a large scale. You have to invent new systems. You know, a city of 10 million is not run the same way, do not need the same transport system as a city of 1 million, you know, just longer. No, they need a different system. So for instance, what I think will be needed now, instead of saying we want to put all the emphasis on public transport and ban individual transport, I think that we should have a combination of the two. That for long distance, public transport is more efficient, but a station, you know, of BRT or a bus stop is usually not very close to your house or your place of work. So you need to combine that with smaller vehicle, which will bring you, you know, what they call the last mile, you know, the last kilometer. And I think that for the very large city, you cannot develop a transport system which will bring you within 300 meters from your house or 300 meters from your work. So you have to have, you know, a combination of the two. And at this moment, this system do not really exist. In a certain way, the other day in Bogota, one I think it was a professor of planning, told me that the number of people who use motocicleta, you know, increased very much, and he thought it was terrible. I think that a planner should not think that as terrible. He says, if the people select motocicleta, it's because for them it's more convenient, and either we try to accommodate them and make you know, the motorcycle less dangerous, less polluting, less ruidoso, but and then we try to accommodate them, even to have parking for them or something like that, rather than say, let us try to make it difficult for them. Or let us try to see why they are using motorcycle and try if we can complement, you know. For instance, Toyota now in Tokyo is providing motorcycle, but they are entirely enclosed, and they are on 3 wheels, so they are completely stable, although they are not larger than that. They are electric, and they station them at the big station, you know, the suburban station. So when people, you know, get out of the train, they take their credit card, put it in one of those things, and they drive home with it. And when they come back from home in the morning, they drive it to the station. It's not theirs, you know. Anybody can take it. You know, it's like a taxi without a, you know, you are the driver, but you put your tag. And I think that this, I'm not so sure if this is a solution of the future, but I think it's one of them. You know, in a way, construction companies are limited in what they are doing because of some reglementation. You know, they tend to build for the middle class or upper middle class. It is not, you know, so some people say, oh, because there is more profit in doing that, they are not interested in the poor. This is not true. You know, if you look, for instance, at food, you'll find in the city very expensive restaurant, but you will find also food which is very, very cheap and which is provided privately by enterprise. I will say even that, you know, if I take the example of the United States, you know, McDonald's makes more money, and it's a completely private enterprise, than if I open a French restaurant in New York. You know, you know, if I am so. Why it is not the same for housing? You know, after all, there are a lot of people who are poor and want a house. Why don't we have the equivalent of a McDonald's for housing? And I think that it's the reglementation. You know, there are too many regulations which prevent, you know, developers to cater for a category which is rather poor. For instance, if you have a small development, you know, I'm sure that, and I've seen that, you know, some developers, for instance, informal developers, are making money. And in a way, they are informal because they do not follow the reglementation. I think that the government should look at those developments which are done informally by a private developer making money and say, all right, you are doing streets of, say, 6 meters, that's okay, but we would like these streets to have a certain slope, and we would like to have a sewer system below that, you know, so they could accommodate that. But they should take as an example of standard for poor people what is really developed by informal. Now, the problem with informal developers is that sometimes they are not very honest. They are not very honest because they are outside the law, so they cannot be really controlled. You know, it's a bit like, you know, in the 1930s in the United States, where you have prohibition, you know, for alcohol. So if you wanted to buy a beer, you had to buy it from a gangster. You know, and then the beer might be very bad and maybe even poison you. So I think that it's equivalent for planning. You know, if you want the private sector to address the problem of the poor, you have to leave the standards open, and so that reflects the you know, the demand from the poor. For instance, usually less infrastructure and more vivienda.